I will call this meeting to order. It's the regularly scheduled Transportation Public Works Committee meeting this day, April 18, 2017. I'm Councilmember Reich. I'll be chairing today's committee, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Councilmembers Glidden, Palmisano, and Gordon. We are quorum and may proceed with today's agenda. We have 25 items on today's agenda, most of which are consent. I will go through the consent items. Any committee member can pull them for further consideration at their pleasure. Starting with the first consent item, item 4 on the agenda, the 2017 alley renovation program, project designation and cost estimate. And that public hearing for that will be June 6, 2017. Item 5 is the 46th Street South street reconstruction project designation, cost estimate, and easement and appropriation adjustment. A series of actions to proceed with that project. And there we have a public hearing set for June 6th. Item 6 is the Minneapolis Stormwater Management Program and Annual Report. That will have a public hearing also set for June 6th. Item 7 is the Nicollet Mall Reconstruction Project, removing special assessment for 300 Washington Avenue. And that will be referred to Ways and Means Committee. Item 8 is the 2015 Water Service Line Repair and Replacement, removing special assessment for 5153 15th Avenue South. The adjustment is listed. Item 9 is the temporary easement agreement with Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board for Nicollet Island Pump Station. Item 10 is the cooperative agreement with Hennepin County for West Lake Street, Lagoon Avenue Crosswalk, and the Marshall Street Bikeway Feasibility Study. Those items will be referred to Ways and Means. Item 11 is the non-disclosure agreement with Alacra Technologies. Item 12 is the Stormwater Pump Station Rehabilitation Project Phase 2 amendment to the contract with Maletti and Sons for construction change orders. Item 13 is the 10th Avenue Storm Tunnel Repairs Phase 4 project, and there's contract amendment with Engineering and Construction Innovations. Item 14 is the PV Plaza gift acceptance from Green Minneapolis. Item 15 is the intern project agreement with the Minnesota Technical Assistance Program. Item 16 is the settlement of special assessment appeal for 26th Avenue North Street reconstruction project, LRH Investments LLC versus the City of Minneapolis. The amounts are listed. Item 17 is the bid for gray-black Class A aggregate, and that's accepting the sole bid, and prices were deemed consistent. 18 is the bid for construction of 42nd Avenue North reconstruction project, and that's accepting the low base bid. Item 19 is the bid for ready-mix concrete, also accepting the low bid. 20 is the bid for drain utility access vaults, accepting the low bid for that work as well. Item 21 is the bid for asbestos abatement lead-based paint removal at the Frigley filter plant. Again, accepting the low bid for that work. Item 22 is the bid for Anderson School crosswalk improvements, accepting the low bid from our contracting to do that work. And item 23 is the bid for Seward Bicycle Boulevard project, again, accepting the low bid for that work to proceed. And the last item on consent, item 24, is accepting the low bid for the 4th Street Southeast reconstruction project. Do any committee members wish to hold any item for further discussion? Seeing none, I'll move all items as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. Those items carry. We'll now go to our public hearings in the order listed, starting with the Washington Street project in Northeast. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Mike Kennedy, the Director of Transportation Maintenance and Repair, will present on this first item, the Washington Street Northeast resurfacing for approval and assessment.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Mike Kennedy, Public Works. This morning is a continuation of the public hearing for Washington Street that was held on March 14th. Very briefly, this project is Washington Street from northeast from 17th Avenue to 27th Avenue northeast. The total cost estimate of the project is $364,157. We had one community meeting held earlier this month, and then because we found that there may have been some problems with notification of the community meeting, we held another one. That meeting was held on April 3rd, just the other day. We had a couple people show up, and both people at that time were in favor of the project. So today our recommendation is to move forward with passage of a resolution ordering the city engineer to proceed and do the work and adopt special assessment in the amount of $164,862.37 for Washington. and pass a resolution requesting the Board of Estimate and Taxation to authorize the city to issue and sell assessment bonds in the amount of $164,865 and proceed with the project. Are there any questions? I can take those. Otherwise, we can open the public hearing.
Thank you. Any questions per the staff report? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. This is a public hearing for the Washington Street Northeast Street resurfacing. We have someone signed in. Rita Billick, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Rita Billick, 2651 Washington Street Northeast. I'm opposed to this project. Well, from my understanding is they're using the city employees to restructure this, and they didn't go out for bids on the job. And that's using a resource of the city that should probably be working on other pothole projects, which Minneapolis has a lot of them, and this job should have went out for bids. And I see that on this letter, it says that you're supposed to have a written objection. Where do I do that at?
You could submit it to the clerk. And we also have this testimony for the record.
Okay, because that's double using taxpayers' money, and I think that it should go out for bids, and I think also that city workers shouldn't be working on capital projects like this, that they have other work to do in the cities. And it's not fair that you just come up with a price and say, well, that's what it is, when you're already paying those employees that money, and now we're paying them again. You know, we're paying it through our Minneapolis tax system already for those public works people. And those public works people are, from my understanding, what he stated was going to be doing this resurfacing work. And I don't know if the state auditor needs to be involved in that and where those funds are going to and if they're being appropriated properly. But it's something to maybe check into because it's not right.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward and give testimony at the public hearing? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Robert Lindell. I'm a commercial property owner at 2422 Washington Street Northeast. And this property, my property, has been assessed at $16,000, which I find quite shocking. And forgive me for being a little nervous, but I feel like my business, being in business for 22 years, is now in jeopardy. I think looking at the other properties nearby, commercial properties, my next door neighbor is being assessed at $478, where mine is being $16,000. And I'm just here to voice my objection and see if there can be anything done to alleviate this. I consider it overburdensome for my company, and actually I feel in jeopardy. And I've been in business at this property since 2006, and I have paid over $160,000 in property tax. So, and I've followed all of the rules that the city has put to me for this, to own this property, such as paving the parking lot, putting in a rain garden, and other things like that. So I will formally put a letter in and await your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Does anyone wish to come forward, make comment? Does anyone wish to make comment? Okay, I will therefore close the public hearing. And if Mr. Kennedy or some other staff could address some of the questions. I think one of the questions from the first person was about bidding, the bidding process.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, it's very typical for city forces to do this work. We're very competitive. We can compete with the outside industry. It's interesting. They are fixing potholes. I like to call resurfacing work pothole prevention, so that these streets are protected from forming potholes for many, many years, and our repair crews don't have to. And it is typical for city forces to do this. We're not double paying them or anything like that, but for our forces to be involved in some of our heavy construction work and the resurfacing and the general maintenance is very typical.
Thank you. And then in regards to the amount assessed for the gentleman's property, it does at first blush seem high. Is there some aspect to the configuration or the formula to have neighbors have such a discrepancy in their assessment?
Just off the top, we do see assessments this high, unfortunately. It's probably a big part of it is a function that they're being assessed at the commercial rate rather than the residential rate, which is a higher rate. And if you want more details, Suzette Hermstead could discuss that. There's also the potential that if the chair wanted to offer an extension of the assessment payment from a 5-year period to 7 years, that might help defray some of those costs over time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could add that the gentleman's presence here is preserving his right to appeal in the future.
Very good. So with that, any further questions? Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, so I'm glad Mr. Kennedy mentioned that. I know there are some perhaps restrictions on how much it could be extended, so maybe there just needs to be a little separate conversation with the city attorney on that. But I mean, there have been many other occasions when pain has posed a hardship where we've tried to extend that payment to see if that is an option that actually offers relief. Sometimes it doesn't, and so maybe that needs to be a conversation with the property owner. Is that actually helpful? So maybe we could even say we're going to have conversation about this one, it seems like, and then have a motion for the council meeting.
Yeah, I fully intend to do that.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any further conversation? See none, I will close the public hearing and I will move it forward. I will recommend that staff find the appropriate extension allowed by our rules for the property owner at ArtServe, and also to maybe double check the assessment amounts as well. And it's been noted in the record that you have maintained your right for further appeal in another court. With that, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. Thank you. So we'll now move to the next public hearing. This will be the public hearing regarding the North and South Sheridan area residential street resurfacing project approval and assessment. Director Hutchinson.
Mr. Chair and committee, Mike Kennedy again to present this item on North and South Sheridan area street reconstruction.
Morning again, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This is the public hearing for the North and South Sheridan area residential street resurfacing project. On January 27th, 2017, the City Council designated location, streets, and improvements to be made in the 2017 resurfacing program. North and South Sheridan area residential was included in that designation. This is bounded, as you can see on the overhead, by Lowry Avenue on the north, University Avenue 17th on the south, Marshall Street on the west, and these are all local streets. This area was last paved in 1978. MSA Streets 22nd Avenue northeast from Marshall to University and 17th northeast from California to University are included in the project area and were also last paved in 1978. The South Sheridan area residential is, this is the South Sheridan is bounded by 17th on North, University Avenue on the east, Broadway on the northeast on the south, and Marshall Street northeast on the west. And these are local city streets as well. This was all last paved in 1978. These project streets are all anticipated to be resurfaced in early summer of 2017 by city forces. The proposed street resurfacing special assessments were determined by applying the 2017 uniform assessment rate to the land area benefited parcels located within the influence zones. The rates are 65 cents per square foot for non-residential and 22 cents per square foot for residential. The total assessment amount, proposed total assessment amount for this project is $1,421,132.08. A community meeting was held a week ago, Monday. We just had a few people show up. So therefore, today, our recommendation is passage of a resolution ordering the work to proceed and adopting special assessments in the amount of $1,421,132.08 for this project, and passage of a resolution requesting the Board of Estimate and Taxation authorize the city's issuance and sale of assessment bonds in the amount of $1,421,135. So that's my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for the presentation by staff? See none, I will then open the public hearing. And this is public hearing item number 2, the Sheridan Area Residential Street Project. Anyone wish to come forward? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Tyrone Folliard Olson. I'm general counsel for Food Building. We're at 1401 Marshall Street Northeast. The building is owned by a company called Encaustic LLC. We're being assessed $11,500. I didn't see exactly a breakdown. I heard Mr. Kennedy mention per square foot. I didn't see that in the paperwork that we were sold, so I was just wondering how that number was come to. It also seems quite large for the amount of space that we have on 14th Avenue Northeast. And it is a burden to it's a hardship to our companies. We're a group of startup companies that $11,000 is far from a drop in the bucket. So I would be curious to either extend out the payment and also find out how that number was come to. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward, make comment, give testimony? Anyone sign in? Anyone wish to come forward? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And if we could address the gentleman's inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, we'd be happy to talk with the property owner afterwards here. Suzette is out talking with the previous property owner right now, and we'd be happy to talk to him and explain how we arrive at these rates and the assessments through our influence area method and the uniform assessment rate. We'd be happy to talk to him about that. And the potential option for extending the payment period could be open to him as well.
Well, I take advantage of those conversations. Staff is here. So anyone else wish to come forward? Any comments from committee? See none, I will move approval of this project as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. That carries. Item 3 is the Commons Ordinance. Director Hutchinson.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Brett Jelly, the Director of Business Administration within Public Works, is going to present information on this Commons Ordinance.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Brett Jelly. I'm the Director of Business Administration and Public Works Department. I'm here this morning to present an ordinance related to adopting rules for the Commons. The current rules for the Commons were established last summer by the city engineer. So if you go out to the Commons today, you'll see signs with rules on them. We did that as an interim step as we operationalized the Commons last year. And in consultation with the city attorney's office and the park operator, we are recommending the city council approve a proposed ordinance and adopt the rules of the Commons. And this is the long-term answer for the rules. The ordinance itself is pretty straightforward. It establishes the authority to create and enforce rules, and per the ordinance, these rules are written by and kept on file with the Director of Public Works. In addition to approving the new ordinance, we are also recommending the council adopt the rules of the Commons. It's very hard for me not to put air quotes up, but they are called the rules of the Commons. The rules of the Commons attachment lists the rules, such as hours of operation, and is substantially similar to what was established last year for the interim set of rules, with 2 highlights. There's new language in the rules of the Commons that explain the bring your own beverage portion of that's related to the ordinance change that's actually going through the Community Development Regulatory Services Committee today. And it also adds event definitions to clarify responsibilities for event production, including permitting and insurance. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the presentation? Seeing none. Well, it's definitely good work that must proceed so we can activate that space and work with our partners. I agree with such a title. We might have to submit to the clerk these rules of the commons on parchment paper and perhaps hire a calligraphist. But nonetheless, this is what we needed to have put in place to move forward with our partner. So good work. Any questions or comments regarding this? I will open the public hearing. And this is the public hearing number 3 regarding the Commons ordinance. Anyone wish to come forward? Anyone wish to come forward? No one signed in. I will close the public hearing. Any comments from committee? Seeing none, I will move approval of this item as submitted. All in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. Thank you. That concludes our public hearings, and we can now go to a discussion item, number 25, the 2017 International Compost Awareness Week. Director Hutchinson.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we know you've been waiting all year for this week. And I'm very happy to have our Director of Solid Waste and Recycling, Dave Herberholz, come and tell you more about International Compost Awareness Week and passing a resolution declaring May 7th through 13th as International Compost Awareness Week. We have a presentation for you. It's a great opportunity to share with you the great work that this team is doing, and Dave will kick us off.
Great. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Committee members. I am Dave Herberholz. I'm the Director of Solid Waste and Recycling for the Department of Public Works. And I'm here today to request passage of a resolution declaring May 7th through the 13th of 2017 as International Compost Awareness Week. The City of Minneapolis Department of Public Works, Division of Solid Waste and Recycling, completed the rollout of citywide organics recycling program in 2016, and we continue to provide residents in non-city service buildings the opportunity to divert valuable organic materials from the trash through our drop-off sites. Declaring May 7th to the 13th, 2017 as International Compost Awareness Week in Minneapolis will continue outreach and educational efforts to promote organics recycling and will increase awareness of the benefits of diverting organics for composting and the benefits of using compost. It's always a pleasure to come in front of the committee and talk about the great job that Minneapolis residents do in diverting waste. And with that, I'd like to introduce Kelly Kish, the city's recycling coordinator, and she's also a board member of the Minnesota Composting Council, to briefly present a report on the city's organics recycling program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you so much for allowing us to give a quick little presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about what International Compost Awareness Week is, and then take this opportunity to share with you a little bit about the organics education and outreach campaign that we did last summer, that we shared with you what we were going to do, but didn't have final examples to show you what that campaign was. So International Compost Awareness Week began in 1995. It was originated in Canada, later added onto by the United Kingdom, Australia, and then the U.S. Composting Council and their Research and Education Foundation have all agreed that the first week of May each year is Compost Awareness Week. The main part of the week is, as Dave had mentioned, to bring awareness to everything compost related. From collection to use, to all of the benefits that come with that, from erosion control to reducing the need for chemical fertilizers, and more. So this year's theme is healthy soil, healthy food, and I have to present to the council your very own Compost Awareness Week poster. So you'll get to hang that up in your office, and everybody can be aware of what it is. They do a contest every year to design the poster. This is one of my favorite ones of the past several years, so I hope you guys will enjoy that. Then briefly wanted to touch base on what Minneapolis's connection is with compost. So you're all aware we've collected yard waste for many years. Yard waste has been banned from disposal in the state of Minnesota for over 2 decades. We started the organics recycling program, or rolled it out citywide, I should say. And we diverted over 3,300 tons of organics for composting, both from the residential curb and alley collection, but also from the drop-off sites that are available to all residents. The organics program last year created 12 new full-time city positions. Through the community garden compost program, we distributed over 400 tons of no-cost or low-cost compost to be used at those spaces to grow healthy foods. And then through the program that started 2 years ago, there were 57 lots leased by community groups to actually have community gardens within their neighborhoods. So now getting back into tying the awareness part of Compost Awareness Week. Last year we did a lot of education around what organics recycling is, how people can participate, and the benefits of doing that. Some of the methods we used were print, digital, social media, radio ads, direct mail. We attended a whole bunch of events. We had interns for the first time ever. I'm going to do a quick little overview of each of those for you as well. So the first thing, we had 3 main messages, one of which was it's the right thing to do. Up on the presentation, you can see we put these signs on our cart delivery trucks so that when the carts were going down the alleys delivering organics carts, the people who were seeing the truck but hadn't signed up could start seeing some of these messages. Our other 2 were that you can save money by participating in organics by reducing the size or number of your garbage containers. And then the third one is that it's easy. There's a lot of perceived barriers people have to collecting organics, from it's smelly, it takes too much time, it costs too much money, and trying to get just that simple message out that it's easy, and once you get started, it's going to be something you love doing, and you won't want to stop. And we do hear that message from residents all the time, which is fantastic. We also did some public space advertising with Metro Transit. So we did those same 3 messages you saw in interior bus ads. We did this save money message on the bus tails. And then we took photos of various cultural families within the city and got quotes from them on what participating in the organics program means to them. And we use those in our print publications and on bus shelter ads around the city. We worked with NCR to identify for the locations for the bus shelters, in addition to what print, what digital, and what radio stations we should use to try and identify the best source or best location for the messages for the various cultural communities as well. So moving on to those print, digital, radio, and social media, like I said, we targeted ads to cultural community publications, websites, radio stations, and then we also tried to do a little bit more in areas where there were lower signups to try and help increase our participation rate. This PowerPoint doesn't include all of those radio stations, websites that we used. We do have all of that in another presentation if you're interested in seeing that as well. And I will note this is the first time the city has ever done paid social media or Facebook posts, and it was extremely effective for very low cost. So that was a really good thing for us to learn and for the communications department to learn. Then continuing on with our goal of reaching out to the cultural communities in the city and trying to remove another barrier, we realized that there are people who might not have opened the material because it wasn't in a language that they could easily read when we mailed it to their house. So in August last year, we had a new guide pre-translated into our major languages go out to everybody who hadn't signed up yet. The inside cover of that guide featured the family photos with quotes appropriately translated. And then it had little tabs on the inside where they could go to the same page as English that came to their house already translated. So they didn't have to call the city and ask for something to be translated and wait for that to come in the mail. Then the last thing this guide did is it had our postage paid reply card that we used for our very first mailing that was really effective. And just as the first time, this was another really, really effective communication method that we had. We also we went to a ton of neighborhood and community events. We did a little bit something extra special last year, and we tried to sponsor a bunch of cultural community events. So our picture in the upper left is from the American Indian Kickoff event for American Indian Month. And at those events that we sponsored, we not only were there with an educational table, But through the sponsorship, we purchased the compostable food service items for the event. We collected organics on site. And then as you can see in that photo, we actually brought bulk compost on site so people could see what the end result of recycling your organics was, be able to take some compost home with them, and then we had a fun little seed starter activity for the kids as well. And then I had mentioned we had hired interns last year, and their primary duty was to go door to door in areas with lower signups. They were extremely effective. They were out in the afternoons and had signed up about 18 new households for every 20 hours they were out signing up. And this is, again, just another method to try and reduce barriers. If you're not going to the community meetings, if you're not opening the mail, we're going to try and bring the information right to you. And they got a lot of people who didn't really know about the program, who had questions, and they were able to answer their questions and encourage them to participate. And then so during all of this ad campaign, we actually tracked through our online sign-up form, through the customer service representatives in our office, how people were hearing about the program to determine what the effectiveness of the different strategies we used were. And as you can see on this chart, word of mouth was by far the most effective, followed by our direct mailers, or door knocking, then the direct mailers and the utility bill inserts. Fun thing with advertising is you have to hear or see something 3 times before you'll take action. So it's a good aggregate. It's the best we can get, but word of mouth. So the more we can continue to be out there and get fun and unique ways of promoting the program, the better we are going to be at continuing to increase our sign-up rate. And then after all of this is said and done with all of our outreach and all of our education, it's really exciting to see that when we went and actually sorted some of our organic material loads, we found that we only had between 0.5% and 1.5% contamination, which is extremely low, which means that residents really are understanding what does go in and what doesn't go in, and that we're able to produce a quality compost that can be used in roads, in gardens, pretty much any application where you need some soil. The biggest contaminant we were finding is plastic-lined paper products. So not so many milk cartons, which is really exciting that people are getting that those are now recyclable and that lining is not wax but is plastic. But some Chinese food containers, a lot of non-compostable soup containers or cold or hot coffee cups, things of that nature, frozen food boxes. So what we're actually doing this week to help with that is we've designed a cart hanger that the collection crews are putting on every single organics cart in the city. And it goes over these are not compostable, but here's the alternative that is. And then this is also pre-translated into Spanish on the backside. So in a couple months, we're going to redo the sort and hopefully find that the plastic lined paper portion has significantly decreased.
Councilmember Gordon?
Yes.
I just wanted to be clear on the sort. Were we sorting organics, recycled materials, or garbage, or all 3?
This is just organics.
Okay.
Yep.
So there were some of these plastic and wax coated paper items in the organics.
Correct. Yep. All of those pictures are just the organics, and then that yellow bag in the middle is what is garbage that was pulled out of that entire load. It was 18 pounds out of, I think it was 3,100. So really, really excellent that people get it.
And people can put their paper grocery bags in the organics?
They can, yep. So we want organics to be in a bag, so when the cart goes to tip the bag in the winter, the organics don't freeze to the bottom, and in the summertime, so they don't stick all over the sides. But it also helps reduce, any chance of there being squirrels or other pests that want to get in there because it is somewhat more contained.
But they can use a paper bag?
And yep, I'm sorry. Yes, they can use the paper grocery bags, and we chose that so that people didn't have to buy the compostable plastic bags if they didn't want to.
Okay. Just want to make it as easy as possible for all my
Exactly.
colleagues to participate.
Yep. And then just a quick update on where we are now. We are at 41.7% signed ups. That's over 44,500 dwelling units. For our program only being a little bit over a year old, it's one of the highest sign-up rates in the country. So that is also really encouraging, and again, verifies that all of this outreach and education that we've been doing is effective. And then more excitingly to see, since we started the program, we've reduced the number of large garbage carts into small ones, but we've done even more than that and reduced, it hasn't been a one-to-one difference, but a more than one-to-one, sorry. But yeah, so we've had a reduction of 256,000 gallons of garbage volume space out there. And then we're going to continue, going out to events. We're going to have interns again this year. Now that we've evaluated what is effective and what is not effective, we'll be taking that all into consideration as we design our outreach and education for this year's organics outreach, but then also in future years when we get to go back and really hit education for the one sort recycling program too. And with that, I can take any questions.
Are there any questions? Councilmember Gordon?
I'm just curious if we've done much research on the barriers or why people aren't doing it or why they start and why they give up and what we can do to overcome those barriers. I mean, I've tried several different strategies in my house and some are better than others and it takes a while to figure out what to do and all of that.
Yep. So we have done, the University of Minnesota, before we rolled out this program citywide, did do a survey of the pilot area participants, and other programs I've been involved with before coming to the city have also done surveys, and they're all generally around the same thing: the cost, the money, the smell, it takes too much time, or I don't have the space. And that's why going out to all of these events is so important for us, because for each person it is a different barrier they have to overcome. So we created the home setup tips guide that was included in the welcome kit to try and help them think about some of the different options. But it's a new learning experience, and we are where we are with organics is where we were with recycling 40 years ago. So it's going to take people some time to get there, but we are trying to address every barrier we can in going out to events.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job. I wasn't trying to
Thank
imply
you.
anything otherwise.
Any other questions or comments per this presentation? Seeing none, quite fantastic work. I agree that there's no better example of hustling a new policy initiative than what we have before us today. I think you've definitely done, something that's pretty extraordinary. You've made garbage diversion kind of almost cool. And so I applaud that effort. And I think the city's better for it. The numbers that you've shown, I think really goes from the good idea to what it really means. Those are big numbers. Those are big shifts. And the fact that we're just ramping this up is quite promising. So I think this was a very significant demonstration of the power of this program. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I just want to take a moment to recognize Kelly's work. She is among the most dedicated professionals in public works. She's recognized by her peers outside of the city of Minneapolis. We regularly send her to educate others about the work that she is doing here and doing for us in the city of Minneapolis. And I want to take a moment just to recognize the professionalism, dedication, and tenacity of Kelly.
Well, with that, we will move to the passage of a resolution declaring May 7th through 13th, 2017 as International Compost Awareness Week, and the city of Minneapolis participates in that recognition. All in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries, and that concludes today's agenda. Thank you very much.